I'm Zach Long, and welcome to the Launchpad. Today, on this album review podcast, I will be reviewing the new Motionless in White album, Scoring the End of the World. Now, before I dig into the track-by-track analysis, I just quickly want to give you a recommendation, if you will. I caught Motionless in White live back in April when they came to Pittsburgh on their Trinity of Terror tour, and I must say, they played along with Ice Nine Kills. If you have a chance to see that tour, if they come around you, definitely take it, because you would be hard-pressed to find a better night out than going to that show. Okay, so now let's dig into the review. Track 1, Meltdown. Now, track 1 starts off with a patented Chris Motionless blah scream. And if you're a fan of Motionless in White, you'll immediately know what I mean. So I wish I could do that blah scream just to seem cool right now, but I can't do that yet, so maybe if I practice on it, I'll be able to do it by the time they release the next album. But when it comes to the song Meltdown, the lyrics have some clever wordplay and seem to show influence from the whole 2020 pandemic situation. There are automated background voices that provide a futuristic automation takeover vibe, and the Meltdown alludes to preparing for the end of time. Musically, this song is all over the place, but in a good way. It seems to show the cards of what the album will hold the rest of the way through. Sprinkles of Prodigy-influenced techno, mashed up with killer breakdowns and a romping, catchy chorus, helps take this maze of mystery to various highs and lows that never get boring and make you want to replay the track to take it all in and decipher the Rubik's Cube that is Meltdown. I get the vibe that this is one of those songs that will just get better with time and every listen. Track 2, Sign of Life. Sign of Life just makes me want to catch another Motionless in White show and see this played live at a festival-type environment. The dynamics of diversity are off the hook and really reeled me in. The synth work gives me flashbacks to Creatures, in a sense, and Chris flexes some pretty cool screams in the second verse, and the chorus drips with Breaking Benjamin influences, which have reared their head here and there on Motionless tracks over the years. The song walks a fine line between appealing to fans that enjoy the heavier screams and metal rock vibe Motionless in White is known for, but also features a smooth, sing-along chorus that fans who enjoy songs like Another Life or Eternally Yours can definitely come on board with. Track 3, Werewolf. The closest I can use to parallel to this one from older Motionless in White songs is the synthwave remix of Voices. Werewolf has a very similar vibe to that, except adding an additional rock element. It was an instant add to my Halloween music playlist, I can tell you that right now. Some of the lyrical progressions are very poppy and catchy, yet clever enough to not seem too contrived. Ricky's background vocals are smooth as silk and really shine here. The drums are thunderous when utilized, although they are more sparsely used here due to the electronic elements that are at the forefront. I really dug the throwback homage to Somebody's Watching Me, and I think a lot of the fans will point to this song as an example of the utter diversity Motionless is capable of. If people that are quote-unquote uninitiated assume that they are just a screamo band based on their looks, a track like this goes a long way into bursting that tired bubble. Track 4, Porcelain. The first verse of this song is essentially a piano ballad that gives way to a more straightforward rock song. I must compliment how seasoned Chris's singing voice has become. I think he's always been fairly good at it, but you can tell it's something he's definitely been working on to add a new, consistent flavor to Motionless in White's musical direction. With that said, I think Porcelain is a bit too predictable in a way, and too much of a step away from what I ultimately enjoy most about Motionless in White, but it's not a bad song by any means, it's just not what exactly resonates with me. Track 5, Slaughterhouse. Now, Slaughterhouse is a powerhouse, plain and simple. It features a guest vocal with Brian Garris from Knocked Loose, and when listening to the album front to back, the sheer opposition in tone with this song versus Porcelain made me literally bust out laughing. It's like absolute polar opposites. This song is one that will no doubt be a mosh pit anthem at live shows, especially at festivals. Everything about it resembles a kick in the teeth. The juxtaposition of the absolute hell of the verses with the accessibility of the chorus really makes this track one to remember. In addition to that, I think this is probably in the running for one of Motionless in White's top 10, perhaps even top 5 all-time heaviest songs. I really dig the lyrics and feel they share a lot of sentiments I felt during the pandemic on a social, political level, and everything expressed here feels like a long overdue rage-to-reach catharsis. It is totally one of the best highlights on the record. Track 6, Masterpiece. Now we are back to Motionless in White ballad territory. I heard in an interview before the album dropped where Chris mentioned how surprised he was by looking at the band's streaming analytics and how songs like Eternally Yours and Another Life were far and away the most listened to songs in the band's entire discography. With that being said, it feels like Masterpiece is pandering to that side of the fan base. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm being too harsh here, because I think Masterpiece has some really good moments, yet something about it feels kind of forced to me, as if they were trying too hard to replicate the success of Another Life or Eternally Yours. And let's be real, it doesn't exactly come close to touching Another Life. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that the verses and the breakdown at the 2-minute mark are absolutely awesome in my view. And Chris's vocals really sound great here. But the chorus seems a little too plain and cheesy in my estimation. So overall, it's something that I can totally enjoy, but only in a sort of limited capacity. Pretty good, but not exactly a masterpiece. Track 7, Cause of Death. Okay, now this one, wow. The intro reminds me of the Exorcist theme song, and then gives way to a verse that is a Creatures level hardcore hitter. It would seem that the 10-year anniversary of Creatures rubbed off on the band on this track. The rhythm section is as strong as I've heard so far to this point in the album. The drums are wickedly good, the bass pops like a firecracker, and the guitar cuts like a Michael Myers butcher knife. The lyricism, in my view, is among the strongest of Motionless in White's entire catalog. Once again, the band finds that perfect sweet spot of a really tough, impenetrable element enmeshed with an absolute anthem of a hook and a chorus. I mean, this song in format, vibe, and execution rivals Reincarnate, and that means a lot to me. In my view, this is a perfect example of what Motionless in White is at their pinnacle. It is easily my favorite on the entire record. Track 8, We Become the Night. Is it 2012? Because Chris's vocals sound like they are straight off an Infamous track. This one is a slick rock romp. We Become the Night gives me Blade Runner flashbacks for some reason, which I will never complain about. The lyrics paint a picture of a stand against tyranny, and I love the shredding shriek of the outro guitar. With another third of the record to go, I have to call it now. Front to back, this record stands toe-to-toe with just about any other album they've released so far. Point blank. Track 9, Buried at Both Ends, number 2. This one right here is another example of a Motionless in White sequel song. Interestingly, on the backbone of We Become the Night, which I was getting Infamous vibes off of, we get a part 2 to an Infamous track. The dissonance tone of the guitar line really strikes me, and the mishmash styles of Chris's screams and polished cleans creates a terrific canvas of sonic composition. The band really gels here, and it was an instant add to my Motionless playlist. Track 10, Broadcasting from Beyond the Grave, Corpse Nation. Here we have another sequel song, this time expanding on a Disguise track. This one features a guest vocal by Lindsay Schoolcraft from Cradle of Filth. Her vocals mesh well with Chris on the chorus and add an interesting flair to beef up the emotional impact. This song was masterminded by Justin Moreau, the bassist for Motionless in White. He had the heaviest hand in this track's composition. Lyrically, this song is a definite commentary on the pandemic drama, with opposing viewpoints from differing sides, and all the misinformation and drama associated with it. My take on it is it's a decent song, but far from my tops of the record. Track 11, CYBERHEX. Here we have circled back to the first single off of the album. CYBERHEX is a track that, at first, I wasn't all that thrilled about, but after catching them play live on the Trinity of Terror tour in Pittsburgh, I've got to say that this is a song that can't really be fully appreciated until heard live. Hearing it then made it just click for me. All the subtle nuances that tie the song together are accentuated in full in a concert setting. Yet the album version is good, and coming back to it now, I find my appreciation for it has grown. Personally, I don't think it necessarily had to be a single or the lead single, as some of the other songs in my view would have been better served to be in the spotlight. However, there is no doubt that CYBERHEX conveys the agenda of the record well, and I imagine that's why it was chosen. Track 12, Red, White, and Boom. On this song, we are gifted by a guest vocal performance from the talented Caleb Shomo of Beartooth. If you haven't heard of them, definitely check them out. And if you have the opportunity to catch them live, don't pass it up. I really enjoyed the clever wordplay in the lyrics, and I have to point out the Easter egg lyric that harkens back to Motionless in White's America track, once again from the 10th anniversary album Infamous. I thought that was really cool. Red, White, and Boom feels reckless and punk rock as hell. I was having images of a psycho rock circus while hearing it for the first time, and it was simply a fun one all around. Nothing totally groundbreaking, but sometimes you don't have to overthink a track to make it work. By purely creating an energetic ride, the band invites you to take the plunge on a wild free fall, and before you blink, it's all over. Track 13, Scoring the End of the World. Now here we are, already at the closer on the album. The first thing that stuck out to me is how solid the chorus is here. It's the type that can get stuck in your head and force you to listen to it 5 times in a row as if you're possessed. The vocals, the mix of the low-end metal riffs, thunderous drums, and electronic overload in the synth works like a black magic spell cast on my ears. It's a killer way to bring this record to a close and is one of the top tracks on the album. It alchemically combines all the traits that makes this album unique, peppering them together one final time to make a delicious cyber rock stew. Final thoughts. There is no other way to put this except Motionless have knocked this one out of the park, and it was well worth the 3-year wait between records. Despite the fact that this futuristic electronic automation may not be the bread and butter of what Motionless in White fans typically expect based on past releases, in my view, they prove here with Scoring the End of the World that they can throw a curveball and back it up to a T. No filler, just kick-ass rock and roll front to back. It is easily one of the best metal albums of 2022 so far, and I will not be shocked if this ends up in my top 5 end of the year list. Motionless made a sleek, risky album that paid off and firmly stands in line with the best they've ever offered. Once again, Motionless in White makes Pennsylvania proud. 9 out of 10.